This is to inform the general public that this meeting is being held in compliance with Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975. The annual notice was emailed to the Star Ledger and filed in the Township Clerk's office on November 30th, 2020, and published in the West Orange Chronicle on December 10th, 2020. Councilwoman Castellino?
Present.
Councilwoman McCartney?
Present.
Councilman Rutherford?
Present.
Councilwoman Williams?
Present.
Council President Matute Brown?
Present.
Mayor Parisi?
Present.
Thank you, Madam Clerk, and welcome West Orange to our Tuesday, April 20th meeting of the Town Council. We are going to start with a presentation by our mayor discussing the area in need of rehabilitation. I'm saying it that way so that we're not confused, and I'm not confused. It's an area in need of rehabilitation, and I will give the floor to the mayor for him to discuss this with us. Mr. Mayor.
Council President, thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak a little bit about this tonight. I apologize about some of the technical issues that delayed the start of the meeting. That's administration's fault for not getting that straightened out ahead of time. So we appreciate your patience, and obviously those that are with us tonight, their patience as well. So one of the things that came out of the months and months of investigation the administration did with looking at options, as we'll continue to look at options for Rock Spring, is we learned a little bit more about the idea of an area in need of rehabilitation, and discovered that number of towns around the state have actually implemented a town-wide area in need of rehabilitation. We believe it's something that we would like the council to consider, and I'm grateful that our planner, Paul Greigel, who provided us a lot of information about that during that process, is with us tonight to present to the council, to talk a little bit about what it means and what some of the advantages would be to our residents. And as always, Council President, we appreciate the time on the agenda and the council's consideration. So I introduce Paul to talk about this, and obviously we're here to answer any questions the council might have in deciding if we want to pursue this. So Paul, thank you for being with us tonight, and I turn it over to you.
You're welcome. Thank you, Mayor. It's a pleasure to be here. Council President, council members, and everyone else in attendance, good evening. As Mayor Parisi mentioned, Paul Greigel, I've been the Township's Consulting Planning Director since 2012, and I assist the Planning Board, Zoning Board of Adjustment, and the council periodically with planning matters. But I also, just briefly in terms of my practice, go work for other municipalities throughout the state, as well as property owners and developers, and I've assisted with a number of redevelopment and rehabilitation studies, as well as redevelopment plans. So I'm just going to share briefly some information about this, as the mayor mentioned, for your consideration. The New Jersey Local Redevelopment and Housing Law is the enabling legislation for redevelopment as well as rehabilitation. It provides a number of powers to municipalities in terms of this topic. West Orange has already taken advantage of some of these, notably area in need of rehabilitation, redevelopment studies for various areas, as well as redevelopment plans for multiple locations throughout the township, including downtown, and more recently, some other sites and areas outside of the downtown area. As was mentioned, other municipalities have utilized the area in need of rehabilitation, but West Orange has not yet. This essentially what it is a designation that can range from a single property to multiple properties to, as was mentioned, the entire municipality. In fact, the local redevelopment and housing law was amended in 2014 to change the language to make it clear that you can designate the entirety of a municipality. That change in the law in 2014 also broadened the criteria somewhat. The two most common that have been utilized before 2014, and for that matter are still often used, relate to the age of either the housing stock, that it's 50 years old or more. So West Orange would almost certainly qualify if the majority of the housing stock is at least 50 years old. And likewise, a majority of the water and sewer infrastructure would be at least 50 years old and in need of repair or substantial maintenance. So those are commonly utilized criteria. There are some others regarding environmental contamination and some other factors, but if any one of those criteria are met, there's 6 criteria in all, including the 2 I called out, you can designate an area or an entire municipality as in need of rehabilitation. So what's the benefit for this? The designation provides municipalities with essentially all of the powers that you have for redevelopment areas, with a couple of exceptions, and they're big ones. Condemnation is not available. It's not permitted with an area in need of rehab. Likewise, long-term tax exemptions, or what are known as pilots, payments in lieu of taxes, are also not permitted under an area in need of rehab. So I know that's often a concern. This designation, again, would not allow for that. So essentially, though, any other power that you have under the redevelopment law with regard to preparing redevelopment plans, entering into redevelopment agreements with developers, transferring property without bidding, those types of things would be permitted. Also, in a redevelopment plan, the planning board and council can prepare plans that are more detailed in terms of design requirements, whether it's regard to green infrastructure or pedestrian improvements, even building materials, things like that, benches and streetscape. You can get as detailed as you want in a redevelopment plan, which a town cannot do through zoning, which is the typical way of regulating land use and development. So the process allows also for 5-year tax exemptions or abatements. And I know Mayor Parisi mentioned this at the Rock Spring presentation roughly a month ago. But this is a tool that is, I think, the reason many municipalities are starting to take advantage of a town-wide designation, because you can, again, it's not the typical 30-year or long-term tax abatement, but for a 5-year period, if the ordinance is passed to allow for it, it can affect commercial properties, residential properties, industrial properties, all of the above, depending on how it's structured. I'm not an expert on the details of the financing aspects of it, but again, it is a tool that would allow the municipality to reward essentially homeowners for improving their properties by giving them a break on the taxes on the value of the improvements. So this is I think that and the redevelopment plan being able to be adopted are two of the primary benefits. As was mentioned as well, according to my research, and you can go to the Department of Community Affairs website from the state, it has a listing of the towns that have taken advantage of town-wide designation. There are at least over a dozen in northern New Jersey alone. I just focused on the northern New Jersey area. They include both urban and suburban settings, as well as even some small towns and more rural areas. So in Essex County, for example, Belleville, Bloomfield, South Orange, as well as Newark and Irvington, all are area in need of rehabilitation across the entire municipality. You also have more suburban places like Metuchen and Westfield, places like Dover and Highbridge, which are smaller towns or more remote locations throughout the state. So there's a full listing that I believe was provided at a previous council meeting on the Rock Spring presentation. But again, it's something that is not just what you find in isolated urban settings, but it's being applied in municipalities even such as West Orange, which have a more suburban type environment and are not typically thought of as being in need of rehabilitation. So in closing on my direct presentation, I think it's a realistic option, certainly for West Orange in terms of the housing stock and or the water and sewer infrastructure. It's over 50 years old, and you would just need a report to essentially confirm that and provide the evidence to meet those criteria. And it would provide another tool for regulating development as well as promoting investment. Again, there's a lot of the options that would be on the table typically for redevelopment, other than condemnation and pilots. All of those other options would theoretically be on the table for the area that's designated. So I know I've presented a lot of information. I'd be happy to go back to anything or to answer any specific questions that the council and others may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Greigo. Mr. Mayor?
Council President, again, just to kind of focus, I know that was quick and we went through it quick a couple weeks ago. And obviously there would be a lot more discussion the council would want to entertain, but the big takeaway from the administration and wanting to pursue this is the advantages to property owners in encouraging them to renovate their homes. So one of the things we hear most often, as I'm sure council members do as well, is when people renovate their homes, all of a sudden their taxes go up because they've increased the value. Now that's not a West Orange problem. It's a New Jersey problem, and what is a very prohibitive tax system, frustrating tax system based entirely on value. And when someone puts a lot of money into their home, it unfortunately increases the value and regrettably increases the taxes. So the area in need of rehabilitation on a town-wide basis provides homeowners a 5-year tax break on the added assessment. So especially when we're looking at a unprecedented strength in the real estate market all over Jersey, all over this region. Our hope would be to encourage residents to invest in their homes. And this is another way that would encourage them, because they would not be saddled with an increase in property taxes just based on the improvements that they made. So I know there's a lot of information that the council is going to want in pursuing this and discussing it further, but we think that's a significant benefit to our taxpayers, to our property owners, and something that we think is worth considering, and we'd hope the council would consider it as well.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I do have a few questions, and then I'll ask my council colleagues to share their questions if they have as well. I know during the last presentation of the Rock Spring, I did ask, and I don't know, Mr. Greigel, if you are aware whether or not this designation for the whole municipality impacts state aid to the municipality at all.
It's my understanding it does not.
Okay.
It's a separate process, so it doesn't, put you into a different category.
Okay, great. And then you mentioned the two big exceptions, the no pilots and no condemnation. So that means, my understanding when you said no pilots, and please clarify for me, that's no pilots at all at any time, as long as the designation is in place, or am I misunderstanding?
It's, okay, maybe I wasn't quite clear. Yeah, so it's one of the benefits of a redevelopment area designation is to allow a long-term tax abatement. That's the commonly referred to pilot. The area in need of rehabilitation, if that's the only, essentially the only statute that's being utilized, it's just not an option. The municipality cannot do that for the properties that are in there. Now, obviously, if there is a redevelopment area, so the downtown redevelopment area or any other one, it doesn't take that off the table. They're two separate things, if you will. This is just that any other property that's not in a redevelopment area otherwise does not suddenly become eligible for a pilot or for condemnation. And
so there is an opportunity to continue to designate areas as a tool for redevelopment.
Absolutely, yes. That's a really good question and clarification. Correct. That this was not, take that off the table. That certainly is still an option to utilize that. It's a separate. Even it is going to confuse me because there's some of the same powers given to municipalities. The redevelopment plan could be for either one, but it's a separate process, separate criteria, and that would still be available. That's correct.
Council President, to that point, just for the public that's watching, it doesn't change the process required for an area in need of rehabilitation, redevelopment. So I don't want anyone to think that this eliminates a couple steps in getting to the next step. That process to create an area in need of redevelopment would still require all the steps that it does now. So this doesn't change that.
That's a good clarification.
Or make it easier.
Yes.
That's a good clarification. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. It's just another tool in the land use law, right? As I understand it, doesn't make it easier. Okay. And then the last question that I have, and I'll turn it over to any of my council colleagues who have questions, is with respect to redevelopment plans and having the ability to require them, does that include individual residents? So if a resident wants to add an extension, I mean, is that a plan that, or how does that work? Was the redevelopment plan required for?
Sure. It does not require, so it would not supersede the zoning unless the township decided to enact a town-wide plan. But in the places I mentioned, say South Orange, let's use an example, it's right nearby. There's still regular zoning in place, but theoretically, and I believe South Orange has done this, is on certain properties, if it decided to create a redevelopment plan, it can do that without going through a separate designation. But again, it won't have, so a home, and theoretically, I guess you could put a single family home or a neighborhood in a redevelopment plan, but that would be, you'd have to go through the whole process of adopting the ordinance and the plan, just like you would for the library site or for downtown or any other redevelopment area.
Okay, thank you. Any of my council colleagues have questions that they want to put forth? Councilman Rutherford, I just saw you're muting yourself.
Yes, thank you, Council President. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Paul, for the presentation. Do we have any data on how property taxes have been affected in the towns that have made this designation?
I do not, certainly. It's a good question, but I'm not aware of whether that's been studied, or so I have to look into that and try to get you an answer.
And are we?
Councilman Rutherford, if I might, we don't, but that's an excellent point. If the council, again, is interested in pursuing this a little bit further, we'll try to get some data, probably not from every town that's enacted it, but certainly some of those in Essex County and are close to us, try to get a sense of in how many cases and how many property owners benefited from the 5-year abatement under this program. I'm sure we can get that data. To you.
Thank you. I think that'd be helpful because I don't see the downside. I just want to be very clear up front. I think this is a great tool, and I'm glad that we have at least this discussion. I hope we do pursue it, but we do want to do it with our eyes open. My second question is, I think Mr. Greigel said something about there's a commercial, a residential, and an industrial zone, and you can include one or more of those, but you're not obligated to. Did I understand that correctly?
Yes, I apologize. I'm reading off some notes and maybe skimmed through it a little quicker than I could have, but essentially the town council as a governing body has the ability to adopt the ordinance for the 5-year exemptions, or it can either do it townwide. You can make it just for residential properties. Again, I'm not expert in the implementation tools of that. I usually leave that to the lawyers, but you have the ability to say it might just be in these residential districts, or it might be in commercial areas or industrial. You have the ability to make that decision. So that'd be something that would, come after the designation. In other words, you don't have to say right off the bat, everyone in town gets it, or it's only these areas, but you could limit it to certain areas.
Got it. Thank you. Yeah, I think my other questions have been answered. So that's it for me. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Councilman Rutherford, I saw Councilwoman McCartney and then Councilwoman Castellino.
Oh, thank you.
You're welcome.
So thank you, Paul, for that, and Mayor Parisi for our last meeting as well, bringing this to our attention. It certainly does appear that we do qualify with the 50 years of old housing stock and also 50 years infrastructure. You get bonus credits for having 2 of the 6 criteria. My questions were along the same lines as the pilots, because I'm thinking already we have Executive Drive, Essex Green, Central Avenue we just approved, 8 o'clock this morning. Paul and I were on a technical review for Tompkins Street. We are pretty much built out. The next big application, I guess, would be West Essex Highlands. So I was curious about the pilots and how that would work. So I was pleased to hear that, there is a way to use that term, carve out, or still meet criteria for that designation. And we have already, the planning board, the council has already approved, there's a card along the Main Street corridor. There is an area of rehabilitation because of the infrastructure along the Main Street corridor. I can't recall when that was approved, but that is something already approved.
I think that was 2018.
Yeah.
2019.
Mm-hmm. I think it's fascinating to think about. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman. Councilwoman Castellino.
Thank you, Council President. So one of my questions was, Councilwoman McCartney had just mentioned in regards to the infrastructure down along Main Street. That was 2 years ago. So I'm glad to see that would be included. In regards to homeowners, would this be triggered by when you take out a permit to fix your home? So say I'm a homeowner and I want to do some work on my home, it will increase the value. But if I don't take out a permit, which you should be taking out a permit if it's necessary, would that trigger the for the homeowner to be assessed or not assessed in this case?
I can tell you that without a permit, there's no process to add in the assessment, except after the fact. If we discover it, sometimes you can go back, the assessor will go back and add it. In that situation, there'd be no ability for a 5-year abatement or anything of that nature, because obviously that didn't follow the process.
That's, I just want to make sure that homeowners make sure they take out their permits and it would be documented. So I just wanted to add that to the conversation, but thank you for Paul and the mayor for presenting tonight with the information. It was very helpful.
Certainly. Thank you, Councilwoman Castellino. Certainly great questions. Thank you, council colleagues. Mr. Mayor, did you, now I think that I'm reading, the comments and the questions from the council. What are next steps that you anticipate? I believe that we do have support to continue to further look into this opportunity.
So to Councilman Rutherford's point, we're going to maybe talk to some of the towns in the area that have done this. I'm not exactly sure how recent some of them did it, but I know a few towns have done it a while ago. So there's probably certainly enough time where they have it on their books, where they have some indication of residents who took advantage of it and what the financial impact to those residents as well as the towns were. So we'll get a little bit more information from that. But if the council's prepared to take this next step, we'll work with legal and we'll work with Paul and start putting some information together. If I recall correctly, and forgive me, I don't have it in front of me, I think it actually starts with the council requesting officially that the planning board look at this. So I think it starts as opposed to an ordinance, it's actually sending to the planning board for them to review and adopt. So we'll work with legal on preparing that, but also putting as much information together about what the statute says, as well as some of the financial information that was requested. And maybe by next meeting, we'll have it on the council agenda to request the planning board take a look at it.
So then that would trigger, if the next logical step, would that trigger the planning board then to undertake a study?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, it is, the
Mr.
area, I'm sorry, requires a report that Mr. Lepore and I have discussed. The township engineer has the capabilities, so we do not expect we'll need to get an outside planner involved in this. But obviously, Mr. Greigel has been a great source of information, but it will not require.
You froze. Okay, good. Any of my other council colleagues have any questions that they would like to ask? I'm not seeing everyone. Okay. All right. Seeing no other questions, Mr. Mayor, thank you very much for bringing this to the council. Very informative. Certainly looking forward to being able to offer this to the residents if it makes sense for the township, and to the residents as well. Personally, I have a few projects I'd like to undertake. So hopefully my husband's not watching this, but
Yeah, just wait a few more months, Council President.
glad to have that conversation at this time. Okay, so thank you very much, Paul and Mr. Mayor, for the information. I think there is a consensus from the council that we would like to proceed to the next steps, at least to have the planning board, do a review and see where the township can participate.
Thank you for the time.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. Moving on with I know it is 7 o'clock, and so we're going to start our public portion a little late today because we do have a couple other items on our conference agenda that we'd like to take care of. So please bear with us. Your patience is greatly appreciated. We do have a proclamation for Arbor Day. Councilwoman McCartney.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Council President. Yep. So for many, many years, the West Orange Environmental Commission, DPW, and our forester select a school and plant a tree, and there's a beautiful ceremony each year. But due to the present COVID restrictions, there will not be that public ceremony this year. But the town's spring tree planting of over 120 street trees is the confirmation of West Orange's continued commitment to all of the ideals of Arbor Day. So on Earth Day, which is this week, the April 22nd, and Arbor Day, actually it's the last Friday of April, but we're going to celebrate it on the 23rd. There will be seedlings available for pickup behind Town Hall. And people can drive by and pick up a seedling. So that's how we are going to celebrate the ideals of Arbor Day this year.
That's great. I know that
I
I
don't have
did.
the proclamation in front of me, but it's all about trees.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that information. I am looking forward to, I did sign up with the school's
Yes,
project.
tree
So-
plenish, tree plenish, they're doing that this weekend also, this week. The difference with the school is that they are looking for volunteers to actually plant the trees for the residents that bought the tree or ordered the trees from their program.
Okay, that's wonderful. I'm looking forward to having 3 additional trees put on our property, and let's see how.
Very nice.
Yes, wonderful. Thank you so much, Councilwoman McCartney. And the next item for discussion, Mr. Gross, are budget hearing dates.
Good evening. Yes, we would like basically the council to look at its schedule sometime out over the next few weeks and pick a date for a budget hearing. It's usually done on a Saturday. I would like to have some conversations with the council president about a format for this year, which might be advantageous, but at this point, I think we'll limit the discussion to picking a date.
Okay, can we work backwards from what is our, I know we've had this discussion before, but please refresh my memory. Working backwards, when do we have to have this adopted by?
Well, the calendar is already awry. So it isn't so much that there's a date you have to have it done by. We need to get it done as quickly as possible. Again, one of the issues that we've talked about with the mayor that we've been waiting on is to getting some feedback on this additional funds that perhaps is coming from the federal government. We still don't have an awful, a good sense of what those funds are going to mean for this year. But we can't, obviously we can't wait forever. So we do need to move forward. So I would say that if you schedule a hearing 2 weeks plus out from now, and then from that, maybe that, the meeting following or or depending on how close it is to the next meeting, maybe the meeting after that have introduction. So that puts us in a process to have it being introduced in 30 to 45 days.
Okay, so you're saying we should look at 2 weeks out from today for a date.
2 weeks out, yeah. Basically, if you said tonight, hey, it's going to be today is the 20th, and you picked the 8th of May or the 15th of May, we'll be prepared for that.
Okay, just to let my council colleagues know, the weekend of the 8th, I am not available, but certainly can do the weekend of the 15th if we want to have a workshop on Saturday. Councilwoman Castellino?
Yeah, the 15th, I'm not available, and the 22nd, I'm not available.
The 29th is Memorial Day weekend.
Yeah,
What about the 1st?
Can we do the 1st? I know that's cutting it close for the administration, but are you available? Can you be available already by the 1st?
Okay, so the township is doing a partnership with the pedestrian safety and the police department at Redwood School on May 1st and 2nd with a bike lane pop-up. So that weekend, I don't know, I'm already on the committee and already committed to volunteer on that event on the 1st and 2nd.
you have to be there the whole time, or?
Well, our budget hearings,
You
we
would
don't
lose a
usually
day.
come in and out of budget hearings. You remember the last year, or what did we last?
But
have
isn't
2
that
hours?
just an open bike loop that people just have 2 days to drive
No,
through?
there are workshops, different scheduled workshops and sessions during the course of the day, over the weekend.
Well, one of the things that I was going to suggest to the council president, so maybe tonight is the opportunity, is a way to get this back to a manageable amount of
Yeah.
time. So that maybe you're not limited to a weekend, maybe it could be
Yeah.
done over a night or two. Where we really, look, the end of the day, we know the points of the budget that have changed. You know, we spend time every year going through every line, and I suggest that happen, but that's really something that the council can do individually, not necessarily together, and actually go through and then present meetings about specific, or not meeting, present questions about specific lines up front, so that we're prepared and we have those to be addressed at the hearing. And then also to address the changes, and which, you know, we identify and can print out a list of the changes. So between that, maybe doing some homework up front and dealing with just questions that comes from the homework, and dealing on a line-by-line basis of all the changes, I think we probably could cut down significantly the amount of time that we're spending on the budget and still accomplish the same review. Again, you know, I'm not suggesting that any less time be put in the budget. I just don't know that all of the time regarding line by line together in public produces anything more than it would if you did it individually on your own.
Councilwoman Castellino.
So going through this process and going through also when I was a school board member through that process, I would like to see if we could try Mr. Gross's idea this year, because I think, you know, it's a long day, no matter how long we try just to do it a couple hours. You know, maybe it'd be different this year, but it goes for to the point where you just can't think anymore. It's just not a healthy process. So we broke it into maybe a couple of nights, and then the directors don't have to wait around all day to jump on, and we could just schedule, you know, whatever director, because I do like the part where the directors come in and give us some updates on their department. I think that information is great, especially with 2 new council members, so they can wrap their heads around you know, what their challenges are in the department and to understand the request. And but if we could do it in multiple nights, I would be all for that. Usually Mondays, I'm not sure if that works out for everybody.
I'm going to suggest that while it's great to have the department heads come in, it really doesn't really push the budget further. I mean, obviously they're there to answer questions about budget, but it usually ends up being questions about programs and things of that nature.
Yeah.
But what you might want to do is have a department head night where you basically, you know, it's a pre-budget meeting where you, again, after you go through your budget, after we present it to you, you go through it and then you come up with specific programmatic questions. We could have a night that's dedicated to just that. And then again, you know, you obviously that could touch on budget, but then really seriously focus on budget the second night, and then schedule a third if it's needed. But that way, you know, again, you deal with the programmatic issues with the departments, and that puts you in a better position to make some of these dollar decisions on the line items.
Oh, certainly. Thank you, Mr. Gross and Councilwoman Castellino. I would be open to, you know, trying things differently. I mean, we've all been doing that for over a year now, so certainly open to that. And one of the things that I will say and share with the new council colleagues is that nothing stops us from reaching out to the department heads to ask questions in advance. And it is something that, you know, I had the benefit of meeting with a lot of them in advance in person, you know, pre-COVID, but was able to have a lot of questions answered at the time. And full confession, I'm feeling a little guilty here because my first year we were at a budget hearing for 13 hours. The second one we were going to get through more effectively and efficiently lasted 9 hours. So I am willing to try to shorten the time over two evenings. However, I will say that Monday is board meeting night, so Lauren would not be available. So we can,
yeah.
So we could pick
Well, if you pick Tuesdays, the in between, you know, you could have it's in between your meetings. So
Oh, yeah.
you know, you could do Tuesday nights and fill in, and and go from there. And I just will add that whether it's one of the new council people or anyone who's on the council, you know, my office and I'm always available at all hours of the day and night to you know, kind of help with you know, dealing with history issues or you know, things that may be, you know, you want to deal with before the actual hearing night, and I'll make myself available for as much time as necessary to each of you individually. So
Okay, so do my council colleagues want to look at then and what weeknight doesn't work for you? The week of the 10th, I would say. Does that give the administration enough time, Mr. Gross?
yes.
Tuesday, May 11th, is that what you're thinking?
Tuesday, May 11th and Wednesday, May 12th.
Have to take into consideration if any other boards are meeting.
Yeah, there's that. Wednesdays are usually the other board nights.
So then let's just put this in the parking lot for now and discuss it with Karen as well to make sure that I'm sorry, Madam Clerk, with Lauren.
It's okay.
Just to make sure that she's also available, because the last time we did this,
Oh, yeah, that's true.
we
Yeah.
we scrambled for coverage for Lauren. So
Well,
so
I
long
don't
as
know, Debbie's doing a
tentatively
great
saying-
job here.
I'm going to suggest that I work with the council president to come up with dates, and we'll float them out. We'll clear them for the calendar. Then we'll clear them for your calendars, and from that we'll be able to select a couple nights.
Perfect.
that is perfect. Thank you.
Great.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gross, for that.
Are we tentatively scheduling May 11th or not until you decide?
No, we're gonna check the calendar first and make
Yeah,
sure.
check with Lauren.
But at least we know that that's the time frame that we're looking for in that area. So thank you, everyone, for entertaining that. And I wanted, before we go into council liaison announcement, I just wanted to share with my council colleagues, administration. I know I saw our chief of police who was on earlier. I don't know if, he still is on. Chief, thank you for joining us. And to the public, today was a very difficult and emotional day for so many of us with the jury verdict in the Chauvin trial. And just wanted to remind us all that having had this type of justice today is only possible when we stand together and support one another. And I'm very, very grateful to live in a community that, while we're not perfect, a lot of us are still learning, but that's the important thing, that we are learning. We have a leader in our police department, Chief Abbott, who is very proactive and not reactive to situations. And I am very proud to say that we live in West Orange, in a town where our police department is very aware, conscious, sensitive, trained, and piloting some very, very innovative safety procedures, if you will. Chief, and I'll ask you to speak on that with the Mental Health Associates partnership, but just wanted to say I'm with you all, and we'll continue to be here. We have a lot of work to do. This was just one verdict, but the work remains. So look forward to supporting each and every one of you in this. It's a long process, but in this process that eventually will make sure that there is equity and justice for everyone in this town and in every other town in America. Chief.
Thank you. So our Mental Health Associates partnership with Mental Health Associates of Essex and Morris is a co-responder program. It's the first of its type in the state of New Jersey. And it's actually being considered as a statewide model right now, but that's kind of under wraps, Attorney General. So we're looking to expand that program. And one of the things we just were in consultation with today is to do an early warning system, which is pretty unique. That it's just like with police officers who show early warnings that they may be, headed for trouble. We look at people that have mental health issues that might be headed for trouble, and we track that and respond. And we're talking about maybe having like a volunteer corps like we do with Operation Hope, our heroin and opiate prevention effort, our domestic violence response team. We have trained civilians who, there's no cost to us and they respond. So they would maybe, keep track of some people and, ensure they're taking their medications and things like that. Just be a resource for them. They're not necessarily trained to the level of mental health associate staff, but they could, perhaps subsidize them in certain instances.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing. And I'm very happy to hear the successes of the program and happy that we are leading the effort to ensure that every response call is done so with safety and consideration of those who we are serving. Thank you, Chief.
And Council President, if I could just add, again, the chief and all the members of his department have been willing and are interested in that, as you said correctly, being proactive. And what's so important about some of the programs that are in place is that they not just respond to particular calls, but that they monitor, help, assist families. And that's so often what's needed. And because the police department, as the chief always says, is like White Castle, they're open 24/7, they need to play a positive role in helping families. And I think this department, under the chief's leadership and with such great men and women, and with, again, the department is so different than it was even 20 years ago, is playing that role.
Thank you for sharing that. And I couldn't agree with you more. I believe George Floyd's daughter, Gianna, said it best, that her daddy was changing the world. I think that today that is evident. It's the start of realizing that accountability matters and our voices certainly matter.
And we were ahead, as the chief will tell you, with body cams and with cameras, and this council funded them and then refund and double funded it when we needed to. So that stuff helps police officers do their job and helps the community hold the department accountable in instances where it's needed, and helps train and make better public servants. So I think that speaks so highly of the department and its management, so to speak, that is willing to listen. Again, every mental health call, whether the Essex, the Mental Health Associates of Essex and Morris County, which is headquartered at 80 Main Street, right across from the police building. So they are right there under the leadership of Bob Davison. Whether they're able to go out or not, they look at the body cam tape, the BWC, and they provide even post reactions so that officers can ask questions and can learn how to de-escalate situations. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mr. Trank. Okay, so council liaisons. Councilwoman Castellino.
Thank you, Council President. And just to give, kudos to our chief and our police department for all their hard work. Chief, 2 weeks ago, I just talked to you the other day about it. You had an incident in town, and if you could just briefly just commend your officers on duty that Saturday night in Essex Green real quick. I think it's important for the public to know the fine work that our officers do, if you can, real quick.
Yeah, so we had 3 juveniles, and I'm speaking very young juveniles. I want to say off the top of my head, I think they were 12, 14, and 15 years old, that attempted a carjacking on an elderly gentleman who refused to give his car up and then went to a second car. Now, I personally saw this, even though this turned out to be a toy gun, not even a BB gun as first reported. It was actually just a plastic toy gun, but I saw it in the evidence room, and it looks exactly like a real Glock 9mm. And it really scares me to think how, if these kids had, pulled that gun on an off-duty police officer, federal agent, a county, state, West Orange, anywhere, this could have really ended tragically. And the officers responded, and they located the kids. They did, what's a routine felony stop, but, it really ended peacefully. The kids were taken into custody. They were taken down to the youth house where they were released to their parents But, thank God nobody was hurt. The officers really deserve kudos for their efforts there.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you, Council President. I thought it was important to share that story because, we just had a conversation. I know we got to get on with the meeting, but, sometimes we do have to take the time. I know these meetings run long, but it's because we sit there for 13 hours at a budget hearing, 9 hours last year. We take the time to communicate with our directors, especially with our police and fire departments for public safety, and really wrap our heads around and understand their needs to do their jobs and to support them. We're able to be ahead of the curve. And it's just such a great feeling to know that we try to keep improving. We try to do our best, because when you turn on the news these days, it's just amazing what goes on in other places. And so I know all of us will continue to put the time in that we need to do to make sure we get these positive results that we have here in West Orange. So thank you, Chief. Great work.
Thank you.
And in continuing that real quick, I'd like to also thank Mr. Lepore and Mr. Keogh to change gears. My Board of Ed, putting my Board of Ed liaison hat on. Our high school baseball field looks awesome. It's also in use. So great job even working with Mr. Bly to get our teams on the field. The softball field / baseball field in Designate Park, I checked with Mr. Lepore, will not be ready for some time. There's some draining issues which we know, and it's going to take a little bit more time. We're looking sometime by the end of May to have that completed. And good news for all those in the Pleasant Valley Way area of Designate Park. The kiddie park has been installed and just needs to be surfaced. So Mr. Lepore is looking within 2 weeks. Hopefully everyone can enjoy those capital improvements that we take the time and listen to our directors to make sure that we provide quality parks and recreation for our residents. And senior services is still yoga and aerobics is available. So we look forward to that. Downtown Alliance meeting tomorrow night. There's actually 2 meetings for downtown. One is the regular Alliance meeting online. Go to our website, 6:30 p.m. Zoom meeting. And then there's a public meeting that is a little conflict for us, those that will be on the call. But there is a meeting that developers that are looking to develop 410 Main Street will be having at Edison Middle School between 6 and 9 to give information about their project. I'm glad to see some of these developers doing their due diligence and presenting to our neighborhoods to see what will be supported and not supported before they move forward. I think it's important. And it's very important for the neighborhood. So all those who live off of Main Street down by Edison Middle School, 410 Main Street is located on the corner of North Park, across from Bethany Church. So there's a project hoping to commence there sometime this year. And with that, parking signs will go up in the Lourdes area shortly. And that's about it, Council President. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Castellino. Councilwoman McCartney.
Thank you. Good evening. Chief, I also wanted to start with a thank you. Thank you for sharing letters and recommendations and reports to the council, because it gives us a chance to say thank you to all and for all that you do. So I do appreciate that, which I wanted to, even though it's COVID, there is so much going on that the township is partnering, police department, Easy Ride. I'm going to pick up where I left off before about this pop-up bike lane and free bike skills course on May 1st and 2nd. Easy Ride has chosen Redwood Elementary School to do workshops, bike skills workshops from 10 a.m. goes right on to 5 o'clock. They're all different sessions. You can go to the town website to register. We are looking for adults 13 and over to volunteer for the event. There are all different sessions. There's a survey in there that if you would like to volunteer to help kids, bring a bike, wear a helmet, learn to ride, wear a mask. We're doing this safely. So that is with members of the Pedestrian Safety Commission, Easy Ride, Police Department, and a lot of community volunteers are involved in that. Along the same lines, I told the mayor that in an email that I felt the stars had aligned when Easy Ride told the Pedestrian Safety Commission that the Kelly Safe Routes to School Plan had been approved. At the same time, the West Orange Arts Council, a grant came out, a Bloomberg Asphalt Art Grant came out. The grant is for $25,000, and it would be to fund visual arts at intersections. So we are applying for this grant as a township with the Pedestrian Safety Commission, the West Orange Arts Council, the Board of Education. So we are at the point in the grant where we have designated intersections that are within the Kelly Safe Routes to School plan. And then artists will create, accentuate the intersections on that are within that plan. So everyone is very excited about that. And the Arts Council, there's so much going on with the Arts Council. There is the West Orange High School. That's coming up. West Orange AP Art Virtual Exhibit begins on April 21st. There is a West Orange Arts Council Dear Mama Family Dynamic Exhibit. That's on Sunday, May 2nd. Reception is from 2 to 5 at the West Orange Arts Council at 55 Valley Road. Everyone is invited. Black Lives Matter virtual and an in-person exhibit begins on May 27th through July 31st. There will be a reception on Juneteenth from 4 to 7 on June 19th. And every Saturday at 10 a.m., adults and children are invited to do a virtual cartoon drawing with Arts Council member Bowie McPherson. I would just say to visit woarts.org and find out about all of these events. And one that just seems very interesting, again, due to COVID, the history of sports through art. This will be an art lecture by West Orange resident Janet Mandel on April 22nd at 7 p.m. at the West Orange Library. The West Orange Environmental Commission this past Sunday, so much enthusiasm. We had Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, the Women's Club, Fight for Green at the high school come out to do our first spring cleaning near Liberty Middle School. So now working with the DPW Inspector Bobby DeMeo, we are creating a list to continue to do this now that all the snow is melted. All of everything that's been under that snow is visible. So people are enthusiastic to clean that up. The West Orange Environmental Commission will meet on April 28th, virtually at 7 o'clock. Visit the website, Township website for a Zoom link for that. We are going to launch a heritage tree program, designating champion trees to be on a register with the town, with the state at that meeting. The West Orange Chamber continues to engage business owners through their Biz 2.0 speaker series. So I encourage everyone to visit westorangechamber.com for any upcoming events. And I kind of mentioned before that the planning board met this morning at 8:30 for a technical review meeting for an upcoming application on Tompkins Street. And our next meeting will be on May 5th. Graduate environmental engineering students from Stevens Institute, who I have been mentoring for the past few months, will present a sustainability management plan prepared for the township. So I think that's it. Plenty going on. Spring has sprung. And I do, if everyone in the community is doing their spring cleaning, I want to remind anyone, if you have any plastic toys, to please donate them. There is a 20-foot trailer up at the recycling center at 590 Mount Pleasant Avenue. You can leave your toys there And we have an affiliation with Second Chance Toys to donate those toys to 12 charitable organizations. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman McCartney. Councilman Rutherford.
Thank you, Council President. Just want to pick up on a couple of things with the Pedestrian Safety Advisory Board. Councilwoman McCartney already mentioned the bike pop-up lanes program on May 1st and 2nd. Would like to acknowledge the West Orange Youth Advisory Board. At our last meeting, they made a presentation on distracted driver awareness program and highlighted some of the things they're doing around town. So we're excited about their enthusiasm and how they're helping out and helping people, be aware on the road and hopefully help cut down on some of these accidents and distracted driving issues. But even more important than that, or at least from my perspective, they were the winners of 2 awards, and both of those awards were acknowledged that night. One was a statewide award, so we have a lot to be proud of with the West Orange Youth Advisory Board, and I think they deserve a round of applause. We can give a virtual one, even though we're not in person. So kudos to you guys and keep up the good work. We also had a presentation that night on a concept called Vision Zero, which is a program designed to cut down on traffic accidents or crashes, especially with regard to fatalities. We have some difficult roads in West Orange, and it is something that I think is important for us to keep in mind as we move forward. So pedestrian safety will certainly continue to focus on that. And then the biggest announcement, at least from my perspective that night, is we are now preparing to work with the County of Essex to identify roads in town that need to be either resurfaced or need to have sidewalks installed. Our mayor has asked the Pedestrian Safety Advisory Board to begin to prioritize some of those county roads. And depending upon how much money is available for West Orange through the new infrastructure bill that everyone is expecting this year, and perhaps even some additional monies from the state, we may be able to get the county roads done and some of our municipal roads. So for all of us that have been yearning for sidewalks and safer ways to walk around town, this is our chance. If you're interested in helping out, please come to our next Pedestrian Safety Advisory Board meeting. That is on May 12th, which is why we had a little bit of a conflict with the budget hearing on that day, but certainly we can use all hands on deck. The expectation is that whenever this infrastructure bill is done, they're going to want shovel-ready projects. So we're going to want to be in the queue. That's really the only report that I have for tonight. And thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Councilman Rutherford. Councilwoman Williams.
Thank you, Council President. And just to continue with the accolades to our wonderful West Orange Police Department, wanted to remind the community that on Saturday, April 24th, is Drug Take Back Day. That is an Essex County program, and our West Orange Police Department will be participating. The ask is that you take labels, name, address, phone number, and doctor's information from the bottles, and you can turn in unused prescription and over-the-counter drugs, and they will be accepted all day on Saturday, April 24th. Also wanted to just acknowledge the AAPI Vigil on the 13th, which was very nicely attended, and just a show of solidarity for the community, as well as supporting our Asian American and Pacific Islander brothers and sisters. With the Historic Preservation Commission, the meeting was held on Wednesday, April 14th. The agenda focused on the certificate of appropriateness for the Llewellyn Park Gatehouse. They will modify that language to satisfy all parties. In addition to that, I visited the Empty Cloud Monastery and Retreat Facility. I was able to tour that facility and have tea with the monks. I was very excited to hear that West Orange has continued to support the monks with contributions during the COVID pandemic. They receive everything from food to all donations, and they are totally supported by generosity near and far. If you're interested, they are doing tours. They have some online programs as well. So stop by to learn more about Buddhism as well as meditational practices. The grounds are absolutely peaceful. Also want to remind everyone that the Rent Leveling Board will meet on May 6th to discuss our mission, operational procedures, and inform our residents about the township services for those who are in need. That meeting will include a general question and comment component with public participation. And also just to let everyone know that there is a separate section for the Rent Leveling Board on the township website. West Orange Stop Suicide Advocacy Coalition will continue with its Keeping West Orange Safe series on May 1st at 4 p.m. via Zoom. We'll invite teens from West Orange High School and other community groups to discuss the impact of COVID on their mental health and also discuss some meditational practices. Also, just like to acknowledge Right at Home held their ribbon cutting ceremony today. They are a Black-owned at-home and healthcare agency. We would like to congratulate and wish them continued success in their new location, which is located at 735 Northfield Avenue. Thank you, Council President. That completes my comments for this evening.
Thank you, Councilwoman Williams. And I'm going to keep my comments brief because I know that there is someone here, I believe, for the Municipal Alliance who will speak during public comment, and that is Lauren Van Dyke. Thankful that she is able to share some updates. But I did just want for OSPAC just to remind everyone that if you didn't know, now you know that April 23rd and 24th, the high school is going to be performing at OSPAC. The Friday night show, which is the 23rd, is at 8 p.m. And on the 24th, they have two shows at 2 and then at 8. Tickets are on sale at the Board of Ed website. And the title of the show is The Show Must Go On. I'm very excited that they are finally able to perform before a live audience. So hopefully we can come out and support our students take the stage back live. So please be sure to visit the Board of Ed for your tickets. And obviously everything is social distance, but want to support them as well. I think at this point, we will open to the public meeting. So Madam Clerk.
This is to inform the general public that this meeting is being held in compliance with Section 5 of the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, Public Law 1975. The annual notice was emailed to the Star Ledger and filed in the Township Clerk's office on November 30th, 2020, and published in the West Orange Chronicle on December 10th, 2020. Councilwoman Castellino?
Present.
Councilwoman McCartney?
Present.
Councilman Rutherford?
Present.
Councilwoman Williams?
Present.
Council President Matute Brown?
Present.
Will everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The council is now in their public meeting.
Thank you very much. So to the public, Deb, we're going to open public comments and ask that anyone who would like to participate in public comment, you may raise your hand at any time, and it does not matter whether someone is speaking. You can still be queued to provide your public comment. Your public comment is, I think we have to reset that timer, Deb.
I was going to say, I don't know why it shows up when I hit play and start it each time, it goes go to 5 minutes. I was going to make that announcement before I opened it. It is a 5 timer.
It's a 5-minute timer. It just shows that.
Yeah. So if I can show you, if I go like this, it just switches to 5 and counts down. I don't know why.
Okay, awesome. Thank you very much. And Laura Van Dyke, whenever you're ready, also please raise your hand so you can share information for the senior citizens, the vaccines that are available, as well as the Municipal Alliance. So we will now open public comment. Deb, please.
Joseph Fagan, you should be able to unmute and
Yes,
make your comments.
thank you, Madam Moderator. I was going to speak tonight about what Councilwoman Williams had spoken about the National Take Back Day, which is this Saturday. The only thing I would like to add, I believe Councilwoman Williams mentioned it was all day. My information is that any of these drugs can be brought to the West Orange Police Department during the hours of 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. And of course, the West Orange Police Department is located at 60 Main Street. In the interest of time, that's all I have to add to the conversation this evening. Thank you very much and have a good meeting.
Thank you, Mr. Fagan.
Laura Van Dyke, you should be able to unmute yourself.
Hi, good evening. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Great, thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. And so I did want to just touch base and share a bit about
Laura?
Yes.
Excuse me, can you just introduce yourself and your title, please?
Thank you. Yes, Laura Van Dyke. I'm the coordinator for our Senior Services Department and the coordinator of our Municipal Alliance program.
Thank you.
Thank you. So regarding our Municipal Alliance program, that is funding that the township receives through the Governor's Council on Alcoholism and Drugs. And it's an annual award. And this year, because of the COVID and reduction in collected funds that provide that feed this grant, we had about a 60% reduction in funding. So within the township, we have about 5 or 6 programs that utilize this funding for drug and alcohol prevention programming in the schools, in our Boys and Girls Club, at the community house, at the high school, Main Street counseling, within our police department. We have a committee that meets quarterly. We have a meeting coming up next Tuesday at 3 p.m. The public is welcome to attend. It's available by Zoom. And this year, our priority has really been to be certain that this funding could get spent, and it was utilized towards programming that could be held by Zoom. Main Street Counseling and the Cope Center were big providers, and we were focusing a lot on trauma-informed care, and we appreciate the workarounds that everyone has been able to do. Community house as well, putting together kits for their kids that they could use at home. So the grant year ends June 30th, and the amount of that funding is about, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it's under 18,000. And again, that was a 60% reduction this year. I think we're expecting about the same for next year. And we do look forward, one of our goals for our Alliance Committee is to share more about the work being done in the community. And Cindy, Madam President, you've been encouraging us as well to share more of that information. So we look forward to doing that and updating the community during this next grant year. So that's my summary on the Municipal Alliance. And I'll just take another moment here to switch gears and talk about 2 vaccine programs available. And I appreciate Mayor Parisi did a robocall tonight explaining this, but I would like to just give the details for anyone in need. Please know that we're part of an Essex County pilot program that provides transportation, scheduling and transportation of the vaccine, door-to-door transportation for people over age 60, bringing you down to the Branchbrook Park for the Moderna vaccine, and bringing you home. We've had about 3 weeks of a Wednesday where we were able to transport a small number, but yet it's helpful for those in need. So you would just give our department a call, Department of Senior Services, at 973-325-4105 to refer yourself or someone that you know in need within West Orange, and we'd be happy to sign you up. And then we're helping the West Orange Health Department promote their Homebound Program, which is a wonderful program. And I give a lot of credit to the health department for their collaboration with Montclair State University's nursing program. And they've been able to vaccinate, I think they may be certainly over 60, and I know that doesn't include this week's residents. They now do have the Moderna vaccine, and so they would be making a second appointment for the second dose. And to make that referral, you would call the health department at 973-325-4120. And again, that is for homebound residents who have a very difficult time leaving the home, and they're then able to receive, a nurse will come to the residents and provide the vaccine there. And those are my updates.
Laura, thank you so very much for the updates and all that you're doing to make sure that our senior community is well taken care of. They are in wonderful hands with you, Noelia, and Ms. Saunders as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And to the public, if you're seeing that the screen says West Orange Planning Board, we are aware that will be changed as soon as public comment is over. It was an oversight, but this is the town council meeting for West Orange today. Are there any other speakers?
Yes, sorry, I didn't realize I was muted. Rosary Morale, I'm going to promote you to panelist. So just because you're in an older version of Zoom, just don't touch anything. Once you're promoted, I will turn your video off and you'll be able to talk. So when you come up on my screen, there you are. Stop video. All right, you can state your name and address, and then you may make your comment.
Rosary, are you there?
Can you hear me?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Okay, Rosary Morelli, Ralph Road. I want to add my kudos, Chief Abbott. In the senior survey, the seniors said they feel safe living in West Orange. That says volumes. Also, Laura, Noelia, and Sue Avino are doing an outstanding job. They are the best. Now people want to be like West Orange when it comes to seniors, when before we wanted to be like other townships. So that's a real big jump. Let's see. Okay, I want to talk about the last meeting we had. It was one of the most horrible meetings I ever attended. I have been attending council meetings religiously, and everybody up there can vouch for that, since January of 1992. I've never attended one where a personal attack on one individual took place. That never happened. Robert's Rules of Order, the rules of the council, always abided by. I was stunned and upset by the whole thing. I think I have credibility based on the fact that I have a long career at council meetings. Now, it was stated at that meeting that Mr. Malanga was responsible for delaying the Main Street redevelopment project for 6 years. That was a false statement. Mr. Malanga wasn't involved in that lawsuit. I have a copy of the New Jersey Supreme Court decision and the 073069 in re petition for referendum to repeal Ordinance 2354-12 of the Township of West Orange, Essex County. Windale Simpson, Mark Meyerowitz, Althea Tweeten, Michael Sharfstein, and yours truly, Rosary Morelli. So whoever made that statement needs to do their homework. Let's see. Okay. Also, something that I took away with me from that meeting, I was in Trenton the day that this was before the judges. And one judge, Lavecchia, kept pressing the attorney for PRISM, asking him who was going to pay for all this. The developer had no money, so we wound up paying. And he finally said the taxpayers, and she thanked him for that. Thank you for listening. Appreciate it.
Deb, are there any other speakers?
Joyce, you should be able to unmute yourself
Can
and
we-
speak, and I will reset the timer. I'm just trying to find Rosemary so I can put her back as a person. There she is. Change to attendee. Okay. Joyce, are you there?
Yes, I am.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, Joyce Rudin, Woodland Avenue. I have to echo what Rosary said. I also am a regular attendee at these meetings, and I was really shocked by the decorum by the council members at the last meeting with personal attacks towards community activists who have done a lot of service to this township. And were not allowed to be there to defend themselves. Many of the allegations were not true. And it was very vituperative. So I feel that this body should conduct itself according to the rules of conduct that are in the bylaws of the council. So I really hope that going forward that these meetings are held with better decorum, and I personally think that an apology should be issued to the residents that were attacked. Today and this week is sort of Earth Week, and I have to say that what I am seeing around town as a member of Our Green West Orange is that we have a few good ordinances on the book, and yet they're not being enforced. This year, the council strengthened the tree ordinance by requiring that tree companies that work in our town must be registered with our town, and owners of property who take down trees have to give notification to the township 5 days prior, no matter how many trees they're taking down. And in my neighborhood, again today, that was violated. When I called for help, I appreciate so much that I did get responses from Ms. Williams and that Ms. McCartney got back to me, and I really appreciate both of their responsiveness. However, when the town official came out, followed by the police, the work was not stopped. The work continued. So if you have a regulation on the books that is not enforced and a homeowner calls for help, what are we supposed to do? Are you taking the tree ordinance revision seriously or not? I really hate to be the tree police. On another issue, we have a steep slope ordinance in town. We do not allow buildings on 25% steep slope or higher. What is before the zoning board right now is a proposal that will cut into the steep slope on Pleasant Valley Way to build the Cube Smart. Why is this even being considered when our own ordinance prevents this? And I understand that the zoning board is there for variances, but this is a regulation that is for the safety of our township. And finally, in terms of enforcement, we have a noise ordinance, which requires that high decibels of noise be controlled by a muffler. And yet that is not being enforced either. So we have gas-powered blowers throughout the town running day and into the early evening without enforcing the muffler provision. So I ask the council to please respond to the public and let us know how you are going to be enforcing these three issues that I'm bringing up. And finally, I would like to say that in the interest of greening our town, I think, and for the safety of our town, we should be preserving the Mount Pleasant forest. I heard many of you say last week that Ridge Road is a private road and you can't do development on a private road. I'd like to explain to you what a private road is. A private road is one where the residents on that street pay for repairs to their street. That simply saves the town money. Otherwise, the street is open for visitors. So please stop saying that this is a private street, and please save a forest, which will help save the lives of communities, of our community residents along Mount Pleasant Avenue. Thank you so much for listening to me. Have a good meeting.
Thank you.
That was our last public speaker.
Oh, okay. Councilman Rutherford, you and I had the same reaction. I saw your face. Can you do let's do one last call to see if there are any other members of the public who would like to participate in public comments. Raise your hand. And
I am seeing no hands.
okay, so we will close public comment at this time. Thank you very much, everyone who participated in public comment, and will provide responses at this time. I will, again, thank you, Ms. Van Dyke, for all that you do. Ms. Morelli, I am sorry that you felt that the decorum of the council during last week's meeting was anything less than professional. I will say that I do look at the rules of council and do abide by those rules of council. Once I have recognized a council member speaking, I can only call them to order if they are out of order. In this case, they were speaking directly with respect to a matter that was listed on our agenda. It was a matter of a resolution, and the resident was named in that resolution, was named in that settlement contract. So I think council had a right to call the individual out. It's a public document, and we had to discuss that in public. I will not speak on behalf of my council colleagues, but I will say that I was, when I first saw this settlement offer, outraged, and that's what I expressed. And I believe that that was what was shared by my council colleagues. So, and that I think also would be my response to Ms. Rudin, who echoed Ms. Morelli's comments in that regard. With respect to the ordinance, the tree ordinance, I have to say that I recall then Council President Castellino insisting on, let's not move forward with this ordinance because we don't know how we're going to enforce it. So I'm going to ask the administration, I don't know if Mr. Gross or Mr. Sayers can share any information as to how we are prepared to enforce the tree ordinance that requires those who do work here, the landscapers who do work here, to register, and then what's the follow-up? I do know, Ms. Rudin, I did not respond. I did not see your email. Your email came to my personal email. You should send it to my town council email. That way I can respond to you. So I'm not sure. That's a question for the administration, as I think the noise ordinance is also a question for the administration. And with respect to the steep slope, I know that I did respond to emails of concern with that, but that is before the zoning board. There's nothing that the council can say or do, because that is an independent body who is tasked to deal with those applications. And it's not before the council. So unfortunately, that there is no further comment that I can provide for you in that regard. Mr. Gross or Mr. Sayers, I don't know, has there been any determination on how we are moving forward with enforcement of the tree ordinance once it was amended?
Go ahead, Jack.
Oh,
Council President,
yes.
if I may address or try to address, obviously we're enforcing the tree ordinance. And I think it should be apparent that in a township of 12 to 13 square miles, we can't be everywhere at once. And so if somebody's taking trees down someplace and our officials don't know about it, I don't know how you enforce it, other than after the fact. And I can't speak to the incident that happened today. I got an email late, just before the meeting from Mr. Sayers regarding it. I did check the ordinance, and in fact, anybody who removes trees in West Orange, any vendor, has to be registered both with the township and with the state of New Jersey. So if somebody violated that, presumably there'll be enforcement. But in terms of,
Presumably.
I'm
Sorry?
sorry. Is the public should not be speaking at this time? Deb, can you be sure to make sure that there are no public members on the panel?
I apologize. I forgot to switch her back after her comment. That should be it. Nobody else we should be good. Sorry about that.
It's okay, thank you. I'm
so
sorry.
that's just a general comment, obviously. With respect to the noise ordinance, I actually attended an environmental commission meeting that that Councilwoman McCartney was involved in, and there was this issue was discussed. And as I've explained in the past, the noise ordinance with respect to the decibel level is not enforceable as a matter of state law. And as a practical matter, that also is something that's very hard to enforce in a town of 12 to 13 square miles, because these leaf blowers are everywhere. They're in my neighborhood, they're in every neighborhood. And so in order to enforce a decibel level ordinance, you have to have equipment that's calibrated and so forth, and it has to be near to where the noise takes place. You'd have to pick a place and set it down and have it operate and just enforce in a particular area of town, unless you had a whole lot of equipment. So it's, as a practical matter, I think if the council is going to have to make a decision about this ultimately, but the issue really, as far as gas leaf blowers, I think, is either you ban them or you don't. I think it'd be very difficult to enforce against their use with a noise ordinance. And that's something that the Environmental Commission was considering, and I think they're going to make a recommendation to the council at some point. So I think I've addressed those two issues, and if there's any questions, I'll try to answer.
Thank you, Mr. Kaiser, very much for providing that information. Councilwoman Castellino.
Thank you, Council President, and thank you, Mr. Kaiser. I'm glad you brought up about the noise ordinance, because so many times also I'll get many phone calls from residents or emails about issues with neighbors having parties and music, and without that equipment there, it's really hard for our officers to enforce. So everybody just has to be mindful. As I said, again, on the weekends with the noise ordinance, we could tweak the times in regards to the leaf blowers to help out there. And in regards to the tree ordinance, again, I hope everyone is aware. I don't know, and this is for administration, if it's obviously if it's on the website, it's there for new residents to know about the tree ordinance. So again, if it's not circulating that we had changed the ordinance, residents aren't going to know, so it will be hard to enforce. Laura Van Dyke, always a pleasure for you to come speak with us. I'd call you the A-team. You all work so hard. So thank you for all that you do. And Sue Ivino, always helping out. And I have to give kudos to Teresa DeNova, our health officer, with the homebound vaccinations. I know she's been working really hard on that for months throughout the pandemic. So it's just so great to see. I had received my second shot a week or so ago, and it's just great that so many of us are getting vaccinated and we could be out and about in the community safely. In regards to the other comments, Rosary, I think the world of you. I was upset, so I think you have to, I'm not going to repeat everything our council president stated. I did agree with all her comments. We did have it on public agenda for a settlement. I was very emotional, and I know that showed through, and that was because Our library board has worked very hard, our director, to get a $3.1 million grant to renovate 10 Rooney if all goes well. And to see that be used in play for a settlement was, again, I said I was disgusted last meeting, and I'm gonna say it again. I'm disgusted even thinking about it. So I don't want to get emotional again tonight. So I just hope anybody wants to talk to me offline, but it is upsetting to see all the hard work and all the benefit coming to our community possibly not happen. 65 affordable senior citizen units, which is desperately needed down where the current library is located. All that gets blown up. So doesn't happen. So these are, we do get emotional sometimes. And I think everyone, I know I try to be as respectful as possible, but at the same token, I have a job to do here, and sometimes this job gets very frustrating. And so that's all I'm going to say about that. Thank you everyone for coming on this evening, and Mr. Fagan, as usual, you've been doing a great job downtown, enjoying your videos, promoting our downtown. Great work. And thank you, Council President.
Thank you, Councilwoman Castellino. Councilwoman McCartney.
Thank you. I wanted to say thank you to, actually, Tammy Williams mentioned it first, Councilwoman Williams, and Joe Fagan brought up again the drug take back. I wanted to let everyone know that we receive Sustainable Jersey points on our certification each year for doing such a program. So I applaud the West Orange Police Department for putting up those mailboxes and collecting those unused drugs. Always a thank you to Laura Van Dyke and her team in senior coordinating everything. The homebound residents, after delivering lunches and dinners to so many of the seniors, we had a list of people, and they have been so receptive to all of the needs of our seniors in town, and evident in the vaccines now that they're providing and the partnerships they're creating. So thank you for that. And to the comments that were made about that resolution, I wanted to say that the council had never, ever in my term have been presented with such a settlement agreement, and that explained the reaction that we had to that resolution 6221 at our last council meeting. It was unsettling and upsetting. Ms. Rudin talking about the trees on Terrace Avenue. Hopefully tomorrow, we contacted everyone this afternoon. There should be a meeting with the forester in town tomorrow to determine how to proceed. So thank you. If you wanted to continue the conversation with the Environmental Commission on the gas-powered leaf blowers, I think I had mentioned at the last meeting that we did have, at our last meeting, I had invited the former president of the New Jersey Landscaping Association, the current president, and the executive director. I was explaining to them that we were looking for a way to educate the community on how to either upgrade their equipment, or what should we, how should we present this to the public? We were informed that there is actually training on the use of leaf blowers, and that current emission standards have eliminated the pollution problem that was once associated with the two-stroke engines that were discussed at our last couple council meetings. And as to the noise, there are alternatives that are still gas-powered, but have noise ratings of 65 decibels or less. Some of the battery-powered counterparts are louder, and there is new equipment, and there are new standards for such new equipment. A lot of the discussion had to do with COVID. We did not want to create a ban, and felt that we did not want to mandate that landscapers currently must upgrade their equipment. but that an education program would lead, and the New Jersey Landscaping Association agreed that education along the way will move in that direction to be more environmentally friendly. So it is a topic of discussion. Our health official is also on the Environmental Commission currently, and we were talking about amending our noise ordinance for weekend use on gas-powered leaf blowers. So that's still a topic of conversation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman McCartney. Councilman Rutherford.
Thank you, Council President. Thank you to all the residents that came out and raised their voices tonight. We certainly do hear you. Want to respond to the tone and tenor of our last council meeting. And I will say that we have had some conversations amongst ourselves. This is not to say that the response was not to be expected. There are some things that that are more emotional or difficult for us than others. But certainly we do look to be professional in how we conduct our business, and will continue to do so. On my own behalf, not on behalf of the council. I do not speak for the council. I will apologize for the tone and tenor. No one likes to see things degrade like that, but I do hope people understand how difficult of a position that particular matter is for us as people that are trying to decide how to best govern town with regard to complex projects and multiple parties interacting in that process. So we do hear you, and we are grateful for your feedback, and we'll certainly take that under advice. Wanted to, because today we received the verdict on the Derek Chauvin trial. I wanted to first say, I am grateful, and I've already sent this out, and I didn't do it in the earlier session. So I'm circling back now. I am grateful that we have not had situations like that in West Orange. I have communicated directly via email with the police officers that were involved, the entire police department, as a matter of fact, but specifically with regard to the police officers that were involved in the carjacking incident at Essex Green. And I think we have an opportunity here to show the rest of the country how a diverse community can police itself without those kinds of problems. When police officers are called to a scene and they hear that a gun is involved, it is obviously going to engender a certain type of response because their own safety and the safety of the people that they are charged and have taken an oath to protect is on the line. But in this case, we saw professionalism and bravery that I think should set the standard. And so I want to echo those sentiments here in our public meeting. I've already done it privately. And I think that we do have an opportunity to serve as a model for policing in a diverse community. So thank you to everyone that was involved there. To Mr. Fagan and Ms. Van Dyke, thank you for your updates. Those are certainly timely and important. And specifically with regard to Ms. Rudin's comments on the noise ordinance and steep slope, I do take all of that under advisement. I would encourage, with regard to the steep slope ordinance, as it applies to CubeSmart, I would encourage each of us as council members to reach out to our appointees and let them know where we stand, and let them also know the sentiment of the community. That particular development has received a lot of resistance in town. And I certainly have taken that under advisement. I'm glad that the vote, I believe, was delayed at the last meeting. And so please keep raising your voice, reach out and let us know how you feel, and we will certainly pass that on, and hopefully together we can get a better outcome. I think that's it for me. Yeah, I think that's it for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Rutherford. And just for clarification, I want to ask Mr. Kaiser or Mr. Trank, with respect to Mr. Councilman Rutherford's suggestion that we reach out to our zoning appointees. I understand that we are not to contact them on pending matters for influence in any direction. That's what I understand. Can you please provide clarity?
Yeah, I do believe you are correct, Council President, that they are an autonomous body that has to rule based upon the evidence before them. So I would caution council people with regard to how to contact and seek to, because there's a record, and the record is critical, and obviously it's a record that's subject to court intervention. So I think you are absolutely right, Council President.
And Council President, if I can just add, it has to be remembered that the land use boards, particularly the zoning board, acts in a quasi judicial capacity. They're charged with enforcing the New Jersey land use law. They can't let popularity or politics enter into their decisions. They have to try to follow the law, and as Mr. Shank said, they make a record, and ultimately what they do can be challenged in court. So the council really shouldn't, they're autonomous and they have certain legal duties, and the council really should not be involved with them.
I only understand that. Sorry, Councilman Rutherford. I only understand that because when I was newly elected, I still do attend the zoning board meetings, but I wanted to speak out on a matter, but was not able to because of what was just expressed. So I just wanted that clarity. Councilman Rutherford, please.
So how are we, thank you, Council President. So how are we to communicate to appointees in any particular body, but especially in this one, the sentiment that is being provided to us? If residents are saying, Councilman, this is not a good idea, this is not something I'd like. All of us have had our inbox filled up with various emails. How are we to communicate that? Or is it just going into a black box somewhere?
Not at all. Every member of the community has a right and does, because our chairpersons of both the zoning board of adjustment and the planning board are very, very cognizant and trained. So any member of the public has a right to appear before those bodies and to articulate their positions, and they have a right to produce and present evidence, and they do all the time. Either collectively or individually. It is a common place for that to occur, and they should do it unfiltered and directed by what they feel is important, whether it's traffic, whether it's land use, whether it's all the things that you and I have talked about on different levels, and that people stand for, energy savings and clean and green. All those things are certainly appropriate for the land use bodies.
But when residents speak directly to the council, their elected council members, and express a concern over a matter that may be before, in this particular case, the zoning board, we are to ignore that and not.
No, you're not to ignore. I'll tell you exactly what the mayor says. He said they're an autonomous body and you should go and articulate your positions before that. Nobody gets these calls and contacts more than the mayor 24/7. And he, just like we don't tell municipal court how to adjudicate cases. People contact people in this town all the time about all kinds of municipal court matters. And we say, that's why there's a municipal court. They do it based upon evidence and proofs. And I know Mr. Kaiser will amplify this. One of the two bodies, I'm not sure if it's the planning or the zoning board, if there is an appeal, there is an option for the person appealing to come before you as a town council, which is another reason why you should not weigh in, quote, in advance of the record or the evidence, because you would then have to recuse yourself if that avenue was exercised by an appellant. So I'm not sure which board it is, but I'm sure Ken remembers.
Zoning board.
So it's a zoning. So that's directly on point. The reason you would never want to weigh in is if an applicant or an appellant wanted to appeal, then Councilman Rutherford, you'd have to recuse yourself because you would have already taken a position.
So we are to direct residents that inquire about or weigh in on matters before the zoning board to directly go to the zoning board and not comment on that at all. That's what we're supposed to.
Correct. And
Because
don't,
I clearly the residents don't know that, because I've got at least, 40 or 50 emails on this particular issue.
Councilman Rutherford, that has been my response. So to some of the residents and Ms. Rudin did receive that response from me. I do respond in that way, because I do know that should a matter be brought up on appeal, we would have to hear it. It would be before the council, and I don't ever want to be in a position where I influence any of my appointees in any of the commissions that they're in. I trust that they understand my value system, which is why we have enough in common that I trusted to appoint them to make those decisions. But particularly because this is a quasi judicial, commission that is board that has to abide by state statute, this serves very differently in that regard. So I do.
Just for clarity, I was not suggesting that we direct how they should vote, but I would have, in prior to this conversation, did expect that community sentiment would be weighed by all of them or each of them when they're making these decisions.
I think that I won't speak for them, but they do ask questions at the zoning board and do listen to the residents there. That there have been, and I've been witness to this with applications where there are plans that are variances that are being sought. So the building that's going up on Northfield, the community was out there. We were all out there. I couldn't speak, but we were all out there, and there were changes that the zoning board made to the variances that were being requested that even took, a 5-story building to a 4-story building, and they make recommendations to the plans based on, I believe, certainly on the evidence that's presented to them, but also consideration of what the public is looking for. I just wanted to, certainly not.
We're not allowed to channel that. So we're not allowed to forward that information, is what I'm hearing from you and Mr. Trank.
That is certainly would be my strong recommendation always. Obviously, the First Amendment applies to everyone, including council people, but I think that you could do more harm to the process than you intend to. And the best evidence really are the people who the best evidence for any tribunal, which, as Mr. Kaiser said, are going to be the individuals, are people who are willing to come to the meeting and be sworn under oath and to basically testify as to the impacts of a potential project. So I think that is stronger and more likely to help have an influence than council people speaking or directing or speaking offline with their appointees.
Thank you, Mr. Trank, and thank you, Councilman Rutherford. It certainly wasn't singling out. I just wanted to be, have that clarification for both yourself and the general public who is listening, that it's not a reluctance to do so, but it's certainly not appropriate for us to do so. Councilwoman Williams.
Thank you, Council President. As always, I would like to thank each and every one of our residents who are tuning in person this evening, and for those of you who may watch at a later time. I think my council colleagues have expressed their sincere response to our last council meeting and the resolution that was brought before us. If any of the statements that were incorrect were made by me, I do apologize for making incorrect statements, and I do stand corrected. Would like to also acknowledge that everyone is able to get a vaccine. I am proud to say that I am fully vaccinated, not at all without some side effects, but happy to have the opportunity to feel a little bit more protected in the event, we do encounter COVID and the virus. Regarding the calls and contact and emails today that were made, Ms. Rudin, I did reach out again, and I do know that there will be some follow-up tomorrow. So hopefully we'll be able to move forward with some resolution. Some of the questions that I had personally asked you about the removal indeed, there is some questions about the health of those trees. So I do understand your concern and do appreciate your environmental activism, but we do want to make sure that we, don't make accusations that.
I think,
and that's why we do someone to go out, whether it be the environmental, our Mr. Lepore or our forester. We do have some follow-up mechanisms in place, and that will be addressed. That's all I have, Council President. Thank you so much.
thank you, Councilwoman. And that concludes our public portion of the meeting. Before we move on with our agenda, I wanted to, and Madam Clerk, with the consent of council colleagues, there is an application, an ABC application. We typically do those at the end of our council meeting. It has been requested by the attorney who is appearing on this matter, if we could possibly hear it in advance at the end of the meeting. So my response was, if my council colleagues have no objections, I have no objection.
No problem.
No one? Okay, Council, I mean, Madam Clerk? Do
Okay,
we-
so yeah, Ken,
Well, let me, if Rich is still on, did you contact Dan Antonelli, Rich, or?
Oh, do
You're
we need to
muted.
make a motion to go into ABC hearing?
Well,
oh, yes, I'm so sorry. Absolutely.
Yeah, I'll make the motion to go to ABC hearing.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, the motion is carried.
Okay, thank you. So we are now at the consent agenda, Madam Clerk?
Yes, approval of minutes of previous meeting, April 6th, Town Council meeting, 2021.
Consent.
Consent.
Report of township officers, none. Reading of petitions and communications and bids, none. Bills, are there any questions on the bills?
Consent.
Consent.
Resolutions, are there any resolutions being pulled this evening, Council President?
I am going to pull, I have a couple of questions, but I'm going to pull item I, which is the resolution 7221.
Okay.
It's the resolution approving an amended memorandum of agreement between the West Orange Fire Superior Officers Association and the township. Did any of my colleagues have any resolutions they wanted to pull?
I just have statements or questions.
Okay. Do you want
No,
to,
Council President.
before we approve the consent agenda? Madam Clerk, do we do that now?
They can, yeah, I would ask your questions before we approve the consent agenda, just in
Councilwoman,
case.
thank you. Councilwoman Castellino, your questions?
Yeah, on not so much but statements, just to inform the public, item number 66-21, resolution authorizing contract for project street improvements. I just wanted to quickly mention the streets that are scheduled for in phase 2 of resurfacing. Rand Drive, Parson Drive, Heller Road, Sherwood Place, Beechwood Terrace, Seaman Road, Deerfield Drive, Abington Road, Stanley Road, Bryn Mawr Road, Stephen Terrace, Bromley Drive, Nicholas Avenue Lower, and Nicholas Avenue from Redwood Avenue to Terrace. So I just wanted to share that with the public for that resolution. And my other statement was for item 71. I just want to thank for the resolution for the professional service contract to Greenman Peterson for the road improvements to Rock Spring Road. I just want to thank Mr. Lepore. He has gone above and beyond with the communication for the neighbors in that community, and with coordinating, and even with our police department with coordinating the paving of that with the golf course. So no one would be inconvenienced in any length of time. So I just want to thank him for all his efforts with that project. And Council President, did we pull K for a resolution for executive session? Oh, no. We just needed to approve that, right?
Right, we'll
Right.
approve that on consent.
Okay, sorry. That was all, Council President. Thank you.
Thank you. Any of my other council colleagues have any questions?
No, thank you.
Thank you. I did have a question. Mr. Gross, if you can just discuss item D, which is 6721, the resolution approving tax appeal. I don't know if this is Mr. Gross or Mr. Trank, or tax appeal settlement for property 769 Northfield Avenue. Can you just discuss that? Just give us an overview, please.
I'll defer to Mr. Trank, because I think that came out of from our legal counsel.
Mr. Trank?
Thank you, Mr. Gross. I won't forget that. That is that is an affirmative appeal. Again, I don't have the exact resolution in front of me right now, but that was provided to us by Mr. Blau, who negotiated that. And because of, I just felt that normally Mr. Blau resolves these with Mr. Dillon and Mr. Hendricks, but because of the nature of the tax appeal and whatnot, I just presented it as was negotiated and recommended by council and the particular people involved. Obviously, if you have questions, I can answer them, or I'll try to get the answers.
So this is settling, it's a stipulation to settle.
Settlement.
Yes, the tax settlement for the years 2020, well, no, 18 and 19.
Right.
And 20 and 21. So that's the settlement for those years. And then this is also stipulated that this particular property is not going to, as a result of this settlement, has agreed not to file appeals for 21, 22, and 23. Is that my understanding?
That is my understanding, yes.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that I was following that. Okay, that's all the questions I had. Thank you. Madam Clerk, I think none of my council colleagues have any questions, so we can move the consent agenda.
Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda? Is there a second? Okay.
Second.
Okay. Councilwoman Castellino?
Yes.
Councilwoman McCartney?
Yes.
Councilman Rutherford?
Yes.
Councilwoman Williams?
Yes.
Council President Matute Brown?
Yes.
Okay. Council President, you pulled 72-21 resolution approving an amended memorandum of agreement between the West Orange Fire Superior Officers Association and the Township of West Orange.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I did pull this because Mr. Gross did provide information that I'd requested some time ago for the breakdown of what the prior MOU would cost the township. This was, just to refresh your memory, it was the Fire Superior Officers contract memorandum of agreement that stipulated that those who were eligible, their retiree benefits would be paid in full by the township. There was contributions to it's not a 401k. What is the plan, Mr. Gross?
A 457 plan.
457. Thank you, Mr. Sayers. A 457. So I do thank you, Mr. Gross, for what you shared, and I have to share that with the council.
Yeah.
But that's only with respect to the health benefits changes. I was looking for the impact, the fiscal impact for the entire contract itself with respect to what we're looking for in the long term with the salary increases that are proposed and that were approved by council majority in the first rendition of this memorandum of agreement.
As far as salary and wages are concerned, the only changes in this for any existing employees is a $1,000 increase in their stipend. Otherwise, and in year 5, there was an agreement of 2 1.5 splits to 3%. So there really, it's, I don't want to say it's minimal, but it is not a major change. I can provide you with the, the dollar differences. I'm sorry, I apologize. I thought you were focusing on the health benefits. So that's what I provided, but I can provide that for you tomorrow.
Okay, yeah, I certainly appreciate it. And I pulled this because I didn't support the first iteration of the MOU for this Superior Officers Association or the Police Association, because I don't believe that we have enough information to make a decision as to what impact all of the benefits included in these contracts are going to have in the long term for the township. So I pulled it because without having that information complete, I can't support it. Do any of my council colleagues have any questions or any comments? Councilman Rutherford?
It's not a deal breaker for me. It's just for informational purposes. I'm curious, with regard to the 457 plan, why are we, it says in that, I don't even know what page, I don't think it's numbered. Oh, page 3, at the top of the page, letter A, it says, it is further agreed between the parties that the township will continue to offer the products currently offered by Mass Mutual or Valak. Why is that? Why are we?
It's a comfort level for the unions. Those are plans that they know, they understand they understand the particulars of those plans, so they have a comfort level with them. We have no objection. We would be offering it anyway, because once you get started with this and the employees have investments made in them, it's pretty much standard that you stick with them. We could, in theory, and we have in the past, expanded the selection, and those selections could be made if an employee wanted. This is strictly for them. Doesn't cost us more or less. It has no monetary value to the township. It's strictly just their preferences.
Okay, I mean, I just, in case there were, employees that wanted greater options, those are great companies. I don't have an issue with either one of them. I just thought it was interesting that we would only list those two, but thank you for the answer.
We currently have 4 companies that we offer. When I first came, we expanded to those 4 companies. You can have too many in the sense that once you start giving a lot of options, we find that it becomes confusing for employees to discern the differences between them, because they're pretty much federally controlled programs. So there aren't a lot of differences, but there are some. So again, this is just a comfort level. If some of these companies were to decide not to offer this product, we would find others. So.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. Do any, Councilwoman Castellino?
Yeah, just a statement, because I've conversed with this numerous times with Mr. Gross. So I appreciate, as always, I appreciate his time and breaking numbers down and whatnot. This has been a long time in the works, and I appreciate everyone coming to a final resolution. And I do ditto Council President's comments with, some providing more numeration. But once I'll be supporting this tonight. Mr. Gross, Mr. Sayers, I like to see by the next meeting something for our firefighters are still, the other unions still out there, and I would like to see that resolved.
We agree.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Castellino. Any other comments from my council colleagues? Okay.
Is there a motion to approve 72-21?
Second.
Councilwoman Castellino?
Yes.
Councilwoman McCartney?
Yes.
Councilman Rutherford?
Yes.
Councilwoman Williams?
Yes.
Council President Matute Brown?
No.
Okay.
And Mr. Gross and Mr. Sayers, Mr. Trank, I know, not Mr. Trank, but Mr. Sayers and Mr. Gross, I want to echo Councilwoman Castellino's position with respect to the firefighters contracts. I know we've had offline conversations about this, but I think it's time to circle back and respond and bring that before the council so that they can have some resolution as well to their matter. Councilman Rutherford, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I just wanted to join in the chorus and encourage the administration to, settle with the, move forward with the rank and file firefighters as well. Thank you.
We are all in complete agreement on that.
Well, let's get it done.
It'll be on the next agenda.
If the parties can agree.
Let's hope the parties agree. I see you smiling, Mr. Sayers. Let's hope that the parties can agree and we can move their contract forward and finally have some resolution. What else do we have, Madam?
Well, we have an executive session, but the only thing left after that is pending matters. So I don't know if you wanted to do the pending matters now and then go into executive session and then you can adjourn the meeting.
No, I'd like to do executive session first and then pending matters, please.
Okay, so I need a motion to go into an executive session.
I make a motion to go into executive session.
Second.
Who seconded it? I'm sorry.
I second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, the motion is carried. We can enter.
Frank, you will send us information on a call-in?
Yes, right away. Thank you.
And just a reminder, please turn your cameras off and mute your microphones so that you cannot be heard during your executive session.
Thank you. And to the public, we shall be back shortly. So next on our, what's left on the agenda is
Pending matters.
Yes, pending matters. Do any of my council colleagues have anything that they want to discuss? A couple of things that I wanted to share, just because I've been, advocating for us to move the ordinance with respect to the legalization and the zoning for cannabis. I am working on a second town hall. Now that it is state law, for us to be able to, get some more information on what the new legislation is and what we want to do as a council to amend our zoning ordinance to allow one, 2, 3, 4, or 5 of the uses that the cannabis legislation permits for. There's really 6 permits, but you can't touch the transportation one. That's just, there's no way around that. And we have to have a decision made by June because the deadline for the state for us to act is August. So because we have to do, go to the zoning board, because we have to have first and second reading, June is kind of like the target date. So I just wanted to put that out there for you. I don't know if any of you have participated in any of the league's workshops, but they've had several recently, and certainly not long to listen to, maybe over in a lunch hour. I'm going to ask that you please log on and kind of catch up, and we'll get the community together via Zoom to have that discussion as well, just to bring everybody aware, make everybody aware. Yes, Councilwoman Castellino.
So in related to this, so yes, we do, now that the law has changed, need to get to work on it. I agree. We also need in our ordinances, and I was discussing, I think I made a mention to the mayor already. So for Mr. Sayers and for our chief, now that the law has changed, there has been, complaints, people smoking marijuana in certain places. And so we need with our parks, because we don't have smoking in our parks for tobacco, we need to update that ordinance and include marijuana, because in our parks, we don't allow smoking of tobacco. And so we should add marijuana and drinking. And so we need to update those ordinances so to keep our parks free of it. Second, and then I've had a conversation with the school board too, because the same thing's going to have to apply on school property as well, because they don't allow smoking of tobacco products. So anything where we don't allow tobacco products, I think we should be consistent and not allow not only the marijuana, but you know, I'm not sure if you want to add in the vaping as well in the parks.
Thank you. Councilman Rutherford, I see your hand up, and then Councilwoman McCartney.
Thank you, Council President. I thought you're not allowed to smoke in public places anyway, right? So shouldn't we be is it too soon to start enforcing?
It says tobacco, that's why. So we have to change the ordinance to include marijuana because it technically is only against tobacco products.
But
The state say that you can't do, I'm sorry, go ahead, Council President.
I was going to say, well, I think what you were trying to say is whether or not the legislation for the state prohibits that, and it does speak to no public consumption.
So are we able to enforce that?
Mr. Kaiser? Mr. Kaiser, you're muted.
I think the state has preempted the field. I think that the state prohibits smoking marijuana in public. And I'm not, don't get me wrong, I'm not up on the new legislation. I have not been dealing with it, but I believe from what I read that was the case. And so that you don't need to change an ordinance. It's statewide. That's the law.
So then we need to have a conversation with the chief to see how they're going to enforce it.
The police are going to enforce the law the way it is. It's state law. So.
Councilwoman McCartney.
Well, thank you. I really just wanted to say thank you for bringing this forward because, you know, all of the emails that we have been exchanging, even from the league, I have been stressing that we need to stay in front of this. And I was thinking August, but you're right. If we don't act by June, it needs to be in place by August. So we need to do this sooner than later to make the zoning recommendations or zoning regulations that we feel need to be made. So I just wanted to say, yeah, now's the time to act.
So I have spoken to legal department, to the mayor, Mark Moon. You know, as I think everyone is in the same space, including our legal department and everyone else's legal department, learning what the new legislation is to make sure that we have our ordinance that is compliant with state regulations and to better understand what the revenue, the tax revenue is allowable for us and what would benefit us. Councilman Rutherford, I see your hand.
So just wanted to be on the record saying, I don't think enforcement should start out heavy-handed. I think we should use it as an opportunity to educate the you know, population on what can and can't be done. But, you know, I think we are all in agreement that we don't want people smoking in public. Yeah, so, you know, I don't know how to handle that, but, you know, I would hope that we would educate on the way to, you know, being heavy-handed or before we're heavy-handed.
I would hope we would do it the same way we did it with smoking cigarettes in public, you know, that type of.
And the health department got involved with stickers.
Yeah.
And I guess I was under the impression that we move forward, that this was a recommendation, especially if one of the criteria is where these, whatever we decide to do, would come from a letter of recommendation from the planning board. So I think that's a discussion that I thought it started there. So I don't really know how to proceed. I just knew that we needed to proceed.
So
I know that I have brought it up as new business to the planning director.
So and I know that Mark Moon is having those discussions to better understand where do we start? Does it start with the ordinance? Does it start with the planning board? Because it is already state law, does the planning board have to, or, you know, I know that when we did the the master plan, the initial recommendation was included by Paul Greigel, and then it was not, it was removed. So I'm not sure where,
Because
just
it hadn't been, because it hadn't been passed at that time. So that's why once we, now we know that we do need to act.
so once they are clear on how to move forward, then, the ordinance will come before us. But they know that because there is a sense of urgency, and the sense of urgency comes from the fact that if we don't act, then by default, you're open for 5 years. Councilman, did you raise your hand again? I'm sorry. Oh, okay.
Right. And then whatever is, exactly what you said, then whatever is in place, if we don't act, stays in place. Even if we do move forward, that we can't change what's already in place.
Absolutely. So certainly looking forward to getting more information, and like I said, working on organizing another virtual town hall for residents also who may want to learn more about what the law provides. And obviously we'll have professionals from the industry, medical professionals as well, and participate in that discussion. Yes, Councilwoman Williams.
Madam President, did we have any feedback or summary from the first Zoom meeting that you can share? I just don't recall where we were as a public.
We were at the high school. I did not record the session. I know that someone was live streaming, and I can probably look for it. But it was a question and answer period. That there was no survey that was done to get a sense of where everyone was. I think everybody was everywhere.
Yeah, I think that was so preliminary that there were really no decisions made. It was really just an open air discussion.
And this, of course, was before the law was passed?
Yes.
Yeah, we were talking about it because we knew the law was coming. It would eventually change. But just to start having that, this was done right when the Jake Honig legislation was passed, which allowed the medicinal cannabis to be permitted. That's when it was done. But because this is now recreational use as well as medicinal, it's a different arena to discuss. Yes, Councilwoman.
So just in keep in mind moving forward, I know from that meeting and getting the feedback from the school community and administrators and the superintendent, not a support for us to pass anything. In fact, I think we should be stringent in regards to any dispensaries not being, how many miles away from any of our schools. I think the parents would be very supportive of that, and I would limit them as well. I mean, we don't need to have multiple dispensaries here, or if any. So we could go in another direction. So I would like to, see what we could do. I wasn't a big supporter of this, Council President, and I was a no on the ballot for various reasons. And, but I think, we have to be very mindful of our school population with any decisions that we make.
So I certainly think that the legislation requires, it would follow the same, like, so with liquor stores with, a certain number of feet away from, schools and things, but absolutely. And one of the things that, it should relieve some concerns is that the state is only allowing a certain number of applications, right? So, that will limit, that caps a limit on a lot of things anyway. But yes, you're right. To your point, we in our zoning can say X amount and whatever it is in this designated zone. So those are the discussions that we have to have. But learning more about how the process or what the legislation provides for is going to be key for us to be able to craft an ordinance that is compliant with the legislation.
Okay.
And the other thing I did want to talk to you about, because obviously we're all getting the same emails with respect to the carriage house, the preservation of the carriage house and the preservation of the Ridge Road property Obviously, I did not support that settlement, and because I don't want to be a party to any settlement that moves any development forward, despite the fact that I supported that development. And I still support the development, just not the settlement. But there is a discussion that we have to have. My position was in 2019 and still remains in 2019. I do have concerns about the loss of property revenue, but if we're able to preserve open space, I'm always supportive. It's just a matter of how we can do it. So just wanted to put that on your radar, just to obviously not looking for a response from anyone, a commitment from anyone, but just the thought process in how are we going to move forward, if we move forward, and advising our residents who have been reaching out, advocating for his purchase. I don't know if there's a public use for the carriage house, but I know we're getting all those emails, so I kind of wanted to touch base with you on that as well.
So from those emails that happened last time when we were inundated with those emails, it came from that certain advocacy group. So those are not really emails that you can respond to.
I know.
All right, so just so everyone knows, I know, I've read and tried to put together something, but I did respond the first time around and they all came back undeliverable. So
Yeah.
Sorry you did that.
just so you know.
But I think the council's, is always looking for ways to preserve open space, right? Not just for our residents or immediate community, but just our world as a whole, right? We just celebrated Earth Day. Yes, Councilwoman Williams.
Yeah, it's my understanding that the carriage house is currently under contract. That's what we discussed in the Historic Preservation Commission meeting.
I didn't know that. Please share.
Yeah, and that was the letter that Mr. Trink sent to us, that I thought that it was going to be sold to us for $500,000, but I think it's already under contract with a new buyer or with a different buyer.
I hadn't heard that.
That was what that was information that was communicated in the Historic Preservation Commission meeting. So I was a little alarmed at the price tag when we got the letter from Mr. Trink, because just looking at historical records, the carriage house was on sale publicly on the multiple listing system in 2010 and 2011. It started at a price tag of $549 and it went down to $299 and it was never sold, no transfer of ownership. So in the 10 years since the last sale and price tag of $299, apparently there has not been a lot of improvements or repairs made to the property. And while we are in what is considered a seller's market, with a property that's in disarray and couldn't be sold 10 years ago for $299, I would just have a very hard time trying to purchase that at a $500,000 price tag in any capacity. So I just wanted to put that on the record, that I don't know how the price, has come about, but that is what I was told. So,
and that doesn't even include all of the repairs and stabilization and upgrades that it does need.
I certainly appreciate that information, Councilwoman Williams. I wasn't aware that there was a buyer, but okay, thank you for that. Certainly.
We do use open space, had that run the course, which is what I said at our last meeting, had this run the course where the Historic Preservation Commission had put it before the council, went before open space, because they are authorized to preserve historic landmarks. It could have been something that we considered. This was the first time I've heard about it. And I thank Councilwoman Williams for bringing that to our attention and having conversations now with the Historic Preservation Commission. They have been looking at this property for a long time. And if we did use open space funds to do that, I would want it to have a public purpose, because that's what people are, that's their tax dollars. So that to me is what open space and the recreation fund is all about, having a property for public use.
So I know that the Historic Preservation has been looking at it for a long time, and they actually authored and this is, I think, in November of November 2020, there was a report that they had. I don't have it in front of me, and I apologize. I'll share it with you. That there was a study done by the Historic Preservation Commission to see if it could be. And I'll share it just for informational purposes, but this conversation might be, you know, of no consequence if it is under contract already.
And so it is on a very short list of properties by the Historic Preservation that they are seeking to have some type of historical designation. I think I reported that in March's meeting. There's about six different properties that have had some studies done, and they are looking to designate them.
Mhm. We have to look at grant funding, not only open space, because there is not enough funding in there for the things that we want to do. So we have to look at New Jersey Historic Trust funds and other things that can help with those type of acquisitions.
Okay. I certainly appreciate the conversation because, you know, like I said, if it is under contract already, it's a moot point for us at this point, but certainly do want us to continue to have the conversation, not asking for decisions, but consideration of the Ridge Road preservation, because we are getting a lot of touch points from that as well. Does anyone have anything further? No. It's 10 o'clock, everyone.
Nice, good for you.
Is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The meeting is adjourned.
Looking
And
forward to
just
the
so the
budget hearing,
public
Dave.
is aware, when I stop the meeting, the recording will stop and no further business will take place. Have a good evening, everyone.
Thank you,
Hey,
Deb.
West
Thank you, everybody. Good night,
Stay
everybody.
safe.